We welcome to the program Mississippi's congressman who represents the 3rd District, Michael Guest. Congressman, good to see you, sir.
Gerard, great to see you today. Look, I want you to make sure that you notice I wore my powder blue shirt just for you. I know you're a big Ole Miss fan. We're right there on the verge of football season. 10 days away, if I'm not mistaken. I know week 0 starts this week.
That's right.
I think everybody in Mississippi is looking forward to actually next Saturday when the kickoffs happen here in the Magnolia State.
Absolutely. And so you got a son who is a student at the University of Mississippi at Ole Miss in law school.
I do. I've got 2 sons. My oldest son, which you mentioned, Kennedy, started law school this week at Ole Miss, and so he is hitting the books, and he is enjoying the kind of the transition. He graduated from Mississippi State and now is attending Ole Miss. So he's in that phase of life where he's kind of torn between these 2 schools. But
not according to his bedroom the way he decorated.
Well,
Come on now.
Well, I tell him don't go up there and be an obnoxious fan. Go up there, take everything in, and be somebody that can root for both schools on Saturday, except for the one Saturday they play each other. And I tell him that's going to make him politically correct. If he ever gets in politics later,
right.
then he can pander to both of his major fan bases. And then my younger son, Patton, sophomore at Mississippi State, had a chance to go see him this week. Earlier this week, was up there Monday visiting with him, and he's loving life. School has started. He's living in the fraternity house.
Yep.
He's living the dream right now. And I tell him, look, enjoy every minute of it because these days pass way too quickly.
That's awesome. That is fantastic.
And before we get started, I saw you have a new family edition
I do.
In your home. So
I haven't said anything about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I might have
No,
spoiled it.
please, because it was scheduled for today. KNIGHT is our new black lab puppy. Of course, Rhino, you remember it was Thanksgiving night that Brute, our beloved black Labrador, passed away. We were headed to the Egg Bowl and had a change of plans, unfortunately. But finally, we decided it was time to bring another one in. Brute is kind of, I say, still the king. We got the prince now. The prince will have to succeed as the king. But we're having a blast with that little puppy. And I appreciate you bringing that up, though.
Saw him on Facebook, and my
He's
wife
awesome.
showed that to me, and I said, look, I'm going to tell Gerard next time I see him, congratulate him on your newest family member. Love a lab. I had a black lab growing up, probably one of the best dogs we ever had. They're just so loyal and so kind. So y'all picked a great addition to the family.
Appreciate that. We're looking forward to it. Next time we have an event at the house, don't be surprised now, Congressman, if he's not the star. You know how that works.
Hey, and he deserves to be.
All right. Well, first, let's talk a little politics. We got the big debate. We were just setting it up for the audience. We got 8 on the stage tonight in Milwaukee. Of course, the leader in the clubhouse, as they say, former President Donald Trump, will not be participating, but we'll get to hear from 8 of the candidates that are all looking to move up in the polling. What do you think?
I wish that President Trump would be on the debate stage. I think he would have a much broader audience, people wanting to watch if the president was there. I don't blame the president for not being there. I mean, you look at the polling numbers. The president currently is polling right at 50%, maybe just over, which is large because we've seen Donald Trump's polling numbers several weeks ago, probably in the low 40s. Now he's moved up to the mid 50s. I think that all the candidates on the stage, they're going to be vying to be the alternative candidate to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
We thought Ron DeSantis was going to have that mantle. We've seen his polling numbers really fall over the last several weeks. And so I think all of these candidates who are on the stage, they need to have some sort of breakout moment if they're going to mount any real challenge to Donald Trump being the Republican nominee.
Yeah.
I think that after this debate and maybe 1 or 2 others, you'll start seeing some of these candidates, if their polling numbers don't move up at all, they'll probably begin to start falling out of the race. And then I hope that as we go forward with debates, that we'll be able to see President Trump on the debate stage with some of the other challengers. But I don't know that that this debate is going to be widely watched tonight again without Donald Trump being there. I just think the audience is not as engaged as it would have been with his presence on the stage.
But one thing, perhaps, though, Congressman, that might occur is that rather than Donald Trump sort of taking all the air out of the room and attacking every one of these candidates, which he's known for, there'll be more focus on issues, and these candidates will have the first time, I guess, publicly around their competitors to distinguish themselves on their policy positions.
You know, you're exactly right. And some of these candidates will have the opportunity to introduce themselves to the public. I mean, I think everybody knows Mike Pence. They know Ron DeSantis. They know Nikki Haley and Tim Scott. But, you know, a couple of the other candidates on the stage are lesser known because they've not been involved, at least in national politics. I know we've got a couple of governors on the stage. And so I think that people who really follow politics, you and I and many of the other listeners on this show, you know, we're going to be able to learn more about these people that we've just read about. We're going to be able to see their demeanor, see how they interact, kind of see where they stand on important issues. And so if you're one of the candidates on the stage outside of Ron DeSantis, I think you really need a good night tonight to be able to make sure that you can be seen at least as a credible challenger at this stage in the process.
Yeah, but, you know, I think you would agree the most important thing is we got to make a change in the White House.
No doubt.
I mean, that's what this is all about. I would support every one of those candidates over the present office holder.
No doubt. And I hope your entire listening audience would. I mean, I think if you look at the record of Joe Biden and Vice President Harris, I think it's been abysmal. I think that they've really done nothing other than to, you know, reverse many of the successful policies of the Trump administration. You know, I think as we go into next year's election cycle, you know, the question that we need to ask, are you better off now under President Biden than you were under President Trump? And I think that everybody that answers that question would have to be a resounding no. It is so imperative that we retake the White House next year in 2024. Not only that, I say it is important that we be able to pick up 2 seats in the Senate, a net gain of 2 to put us at 51. But that's not going to be easy. In Mississippi, I think Mississippi is solidly red. I think if people in Mississippi understand, they get the bad policies of this administration, the impact that it's had on them personally, on their families, on their businesses. But we've got to understand that the rest of the world doesn't look at things with the same lens as Mississippi does. And so this is not going to be easy. As bad as President Biden has been, and I would say that he is the worst president we've had since Jimmy Carter, maybe even worse than Jimmy Carter. Yeah. If you look at national polling, this is still a horse race.
No doubt about it.
Whether he's polling against Donald Trump, whether he's polling against Ron DeSantis, whoever the Republican is, national polling still puts us at 50-50.
It's amazing.
So we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that our party is energized, that our people are turning out to vote, and that we are electing conservatives up and down the ticket.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the polls, poll after poll, and regardless of the polling organization or sort of the leanings of the polling organization, all show that economics are the top issues. They always are. James Carville sort of made that go down in infamy when he said it's about the economy, stupid, and we'll never forget that. I think he was right. And inflation tops that list of economic concerns.
Well, because inflation impacts every one of us. And every time we go to the grocery store, we see that our paycheck doesn't go as far every week as it went the week before.
Right.
So when you go to Walmart or Kroger and you're buying your groceries and your household goods, once you go to checkout, the same goods you bought a month ago now are going to cost you a little bit more. When we go to the gas station, we've seen gas prices begin to rise. Electric bills right now. Of course, everybody's having to run their air conditioning more because of this heat dome that we've seen that has engulfed not only Mississippi but a large part of the United States. And so people's paychecks, they're not going as far as they did even several months ago. And people are going to vote based on those paycheck issues.
Yeah. We got a break right here, but when we come back, wanted to talk to you about The budget coming up again. The Freedom Caucus has issued their sort of list of demands on what they want to see in the stopgap funding bill and the more permanent is for a year funding bills, the way we operate up there. We got Congressman Michael Guest in the Element Well studio. It's middays. We're visiting with Congressman Michael Guest. He, of course, represents Mississippi's 3rd District. So before we went to break, Congressman, we were talking about the need to fund the government again. This comes around. The whole system's kind of broken, isn't it, though, Congressman? I mean,
it is. I mean, it's been probably well before my time in Congress that we've actually passed a budget on time.
Yeah.
Our budget year ends last day of September, so October 1st, we will be looking at next budget year. And there are 12 different appropriations bills, and they deal with funding the entire government from, which is a gamut of federal programs. And as we sit today, the Senate has passed none of the funding bills from out of the Senate, and the House has passed one. We were able to pass one of our funding bills, MilCon VA, Military Construction and Veteran Affairs bills out the House floor. Now we have in the House, we've passed 10 of the 12 bills out of committee. I think the Senate has passed all 12 bills out of committee. But you're looking at a condensed schedule. We'll come back after Labor Day, so you'll have 3.5 weeks for Congress to either pass some sort of spending bills, legislation to fund the government, or what we've historically seen is a continuing resolution,
right,
which is we agree to fund the government for a certain length of time, whether that be days or weeks or months, and it is generally been funded at the prior year spending level. Continuing resolutions are not a great way to fund the government, particularly if you look at things such as military programs. The military can't start new programs with money that has been appropriated by continuing resolution. So often what you see is that our military preparedness, new programs that we would like to start suffer during that period of time. But that's going to be the debate in the battle, because whatever spending bills we pass out of the House, I will guarantee you those bills will not match up with what will be passed out of the Senate. They will then have to go to conference, try to marry those spending bills together. And look, there's a huge disagreement in spending in Congress between what House Republicans want to spend and then particularly what they want to spend in the Senate. And we know that our Democratic friends, they have no interest in cutting spending. They would like to see spending, particularly federal programs, expanded. And so the group that is trying to hold the line on spending are going to be the House Republicans.
Yeah.
And we're all going to have to be in this together. We're all going to have resolve if we want to see us bend that spending curve. And I know you're a big numbers guy, and I think you would agree with me that our spending trajectory is unsustainable. That we've got to start bending that curve, and now is the time to do that. And it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and let's clarify. I know you're fully aware of this for the audience. I think the average American probably doesn't realize this, is that these appropriations bills and these actions on funding the government really only address the discretionary portion of spending, which comes in at about 30%.
That's right.
The big spending, 70%, it's on autopilot.
Yeah, that's right. 70% is mandatory spending, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, servicing
Interest
of the national debt. So 70% of the spending, Congress doesn't touch at all. And every year we know that there are cost of living COLA increases for those programs. So those programs continue to rise. So we're dealing with 30% of funding. If you take out military spending and the spending on our veterans,
which is discretionary,
but if you take that part of discretionary spending out, you're looking at about 12 to 15% of the budget. So a very real small percent of the budget that Congress actually has control over.
Yeah. And so I guess the point is, when we talk about trying to rein in spending, if we keep the military level or maybe a slight increase, we're looking at the 12 to 15%.
That's right.
That really you have any control over. Not that you don't have control over mandatory spending, But the lift there is considerably heavier because you got to get through the filibuster-proof Senate.
That's right, and so you're looking at having to again marry those two spending bills up together, and also knowing that the president has veto authority,
right.
And so even if the House and Senate were to come to some sort of spending resolution at a number lower than that spending cap, President Biden could still come in and veto that, and then it would require a 2/3 vote in both chambers to override a presidential veto. The other thing that we're trying to do through this budgetary process is we're trying to put conservative policies in place.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at the budget process, you're not only looking at the dollars and cents that each agency is going to receive, but you can also put some stipulations on those fundings. Some of the things that Republicans have done in those spending bills that have passed out of committee is one would be a restriction that the VA can only fly an American flag or a service flag of one of our armed services over our VA facilities and our national cemeteries.
Yeah.
It is wrong, I believe, for these political flags to be flying over a VA service, a VA facility or cemetery. We know that happened on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
It is something that I think is wrong. I think it is something that that agency should be apolitical. They should serve all veterans. We shouldn't be looking at whether a veteran is conservative or whether a veteran is more progressive. That their primary goal and mission is to serve those veterans, those that have served us. And so, part of the process also is trying to include conservative policy riders in this appropriations process. And so we want to cut spending and we want to focus spending. There are a couple of areas that Republicans did want to plus up spending, defense being one, additional spending to secure the border being the other, and the third being spending for our veterans. But in all other categories, the Republicans, at least House Republicans, are looking for areas to cut the budget and bring spending under control.
The concern that I've shared quite a bit on the program, Congressman, is it seems like so much of just action taken by government in general doesn't actually come from the Congress. It comes from the bureaucratic agency complex. And look no further than now the president, through the Department of Ed, is circumventing the Supreme Court's ruling on student loan forgiveness, and they've implemented some changes in the terms of these loans that are effectively forgiving student loans.
You're exactly right. And one thing Congress has done over the last several decades is we've given the administrative branch, the executive branch, we've given them the rule-making authority. So we create these agencies, EPA maybe being one, the Department of Education, and we basically allow them to create the rules and regulations that they're going to impose upon the American public.
Yeah.
And so Congress has ceded our authority to these agencies, and it's important that we try to claw that power back. Those decisions should be made not by some bureaucrat who's been working in the Department of Education for 40 years, but those decisions should be made by elected representatives. We should have a debate on that. The people should see us debating that. They should see us voting for these policies and procedures that we're going to put in place. But we have done a very poor job, or Congress has, by giving that authority up to the executive branch.
Yeah, and it's been challenged, and like we saw in the court. And then they just go back to the drawing board and figure out another way to subvert these rulings, essentially.
Student loan forgiveness. You come in, the president tries to forgive student loan. We go to, that's challenged all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says, no, that's not constitutional. The president doesn't have that authority. And within a week later, he's tried to find a workaround to once again go forward with the student loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that again will be challenged in court. But what you see is that since Congress right now is so equally divided, again, very narrow House and Senate, it's very difficult for us as Republicans, for conservatives, to make major changes. And one of the areas that we can do that is through these appropriations bills. So we're going to have to stay strong. We're going to have to use this avenue as a way to cut spending and as a way to see that we can put conservative riders in these appropriation language bills.
You're so right. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy has specifically stated that we're just going to defund the FBI and the IRS and the DOJ. I mean, he just believes they're highly politicized and weaponized. and really acting without authority to a great extent. I don't know if a president could do that, but we need the Congress. We need you guys somehow to get the stars aligned so that we could rein in this administrative state.
No doubt, and that's something that we recognize, something that we don't have the votes to do yet, but we're going to continue to push and continue to see that happens at some point.
I hope so, because it's not the way our system was designed to work.
No doubt, wasn't what our founding fathers intended.
Yeah, appreciate it, Congressman.
Yes,
Always
sir.
good to see you, sir. Thank you. We're coming right back with more in the